Hello, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. We are offering interpretation, both ASL and Spanish language interpretation. If you're requiring Spanish language interpretation, you can turn that on with the globe icon at the bottom of your screen and select Spanish. And would my interpreter, Bianca, would you mind sharing those instructions in Spanish?
Ok, bienvenidos a esta conferencia. Si ustedes eligen escucharla en español, por favor, diríjanse a su pantalla en la esquina. Encuentran un globito que dice interpretación y ahí pueden escoger su canal de inglés a español. Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much. So welcome, everybody. This is our first family and community session in our Conversations with the District series. We're very excited to have you all here this evening. If everybody, all of our participants, would drop their name and school affiliation in the chat, we'd love to get to know who's on this call. And also, as a quick point of housekeeping, the first half of this event will be panel style, where I will be asking questions to our leadership team. And the second half will be question and answer style. If you have questions that come up throughout the first half of this event during the panel, please feel free to share those questions in the chat. We will be reviewing the chat and we will make sure that those questions get answered. And this event is being recorded. The recording will be uploaded later if there's anybody you know who missed it or you'd like to revisit it at any time. And with that, I think we can go ahead and get started with introductions for our panelists today, starting, of course, with Superintendent Dr. Elisalde.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for taking time. Please note you are our inaugural group that we are trying these community conversations. And as stated, I just want to remind everyone, the first half is about us kind of providing some information about some of what we're hearing a lot about in terms of things that we may be doing, decisions we may be making, followed by the second half, where we will work to incorporate and respond to as many questions as we can. So we'd love your feedback because we think we can learn a lot from this. I just want to be able to start off again by saying thank you so much. Gracias por todo. And I'd like to just indicate that I'm just honored and humbled to be able to serve our community. It's during my listening tour, during the first 2 months that I arrived in Austin, I heard some overwhelming themes. I heard themes of equity. I heard themes of equity being utilized in special programs, specifically whether it was bilingual education, multi-language, special education, as well as other programs like early college, high schools, and P-TECs. I heard a lot about community. I heard a lot about transparency, and I heard a lot about being focused on students. So it's truly, truly my honor to be able to serve and work with you. I do consider myself truly a public servant. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Elisalde.
Good evening, everyone. Elizabeth Casas, Chief Academic Officer. Thank you for joining us tonight. It's good to see everyone.
Good evening, everyone. Anthony Mays, Chief of Schools. Glad to be here, glad to be participating in the conversation.
Good evening, everyone. Stephanie Hawley, Equity Officer, and happy to be here and welcome to the conversation.
Good evening, everyone. Sean Brinkman, Chief Technology Officer. Thank you for participating in the conversation this evening.
Hello, everyone, and bienvenidos. My name is Ashley Gonzalez, and I am the Chief of Police for the District Police Department. Excited to be here answering some of your questions and providing additional information.
Good evening, everyone. Leslie Stevens, Chief of Human Capital. Glad to be here.
Hello, my name is Jacob Reach. I'm the Chief Officer of Intergovernmental Relations and Board Services, and excited to be here with our Crockett and Travis vertical teams.
Hello, everyone. My name is Matias Segura. I am the Acting Chief of Operations. Looking forward to our conversation. Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Wallace, Executive Director of the Office of Innovation and Development, and also serve as the Executive Director for the Austin Ed Fund. Great to be here.
All righty, thank you so much. So let's go ahead and jump straight into these questions. So this first one, we're going to start with Dr. Elisalde. Being new to the district, what are some of the ways that you sought to learn from Austin ISD families and community members? And can you give some specific examples about what you've heard and how that's informed your priorities and decision making?
Yes, thank you for that. I think I might have jumped the gun a little bit on that and started on that when I did my introduction. I was so excited. Part of what I utilized was a list of questions that I would ask community members, internal and external stakeholders, and then I essentially applied an analysis, if you will, as if I were working on a dissertation of some sort, and utilized a qualitative lens to see what were the common themes that I discovered throughout that period of time. And some of the things I discovered were things of, you know, ensuring that Austin maintained excellence and that we built upon excellence, but that we were also honest about areas in which we needed some reflection and some real equity action. And I heard a lot about, we've talked a lot, that they wanted us to collectively come together as a team and see some equitable actions. I also heard a lot about how important it is that we ensure that we do remain focused on student outcomes, so that we should evaluate our practices and whether those are aligned to the type of student outcomes that we are seeking, and where they are, that we continue, and where they are not, that they would actually change those things. That it was important to realize community engagement, not for the purposes of a tagline, but for the purposes of real community engagement. Those were some common themes, and a couple of those areas, certainly internally, because it was a little bit easier. I did create a teacher roundtable group. I also created a principal focus group. And then wherever possible, and I see some friends' names here of groups that I've met with, to really hear from them directly about areas of concern, whether those were in bilingual education, special education, or equity overall, or possibly even some areas of student discipline and student management that were areas of concern. And so I think continuing to focus on those areas, I would like to, before I close my part and hand it over to Dr. Hawley, is that I want to thank the community for providing me some time to get caught up, and the grace that you all have shown me in being able to work through the challenges of COVID and not being able to connect in the way in which we would normally, not being able to go down to the neighborhood, you know, and have un cafecito or get together and enjoy some lunch or a cup of tea together. And I know we will continue to work through that. And I greatly appreciate the individuals who have provided me a lot of historical perspectives, and have also shared with me the need to really understand the history of what is today Austin. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Dr. Elisalde. Now I'll turn it over to Dr. Stephanie Hawley to talk a little bit about the Equity Advisory Committee.
Thank you. Good evening, Stephanie Hawley, Equity Officer. First of all, I want to give a shout out to Dr. Elisalde for embracing the idea of an Equity Advisory Committee. The Office of Equity had this concept in mind for several months, and she really embraced it. And this committee is organized to strengthen the connections between the district and the community as we pursue equitable outcomes. And so we want to make sure that we can no longer predict who's going to be successful in our district based on race, ethnicity, or their gender. And so when we organized this committee, we wanted to make sure that we had lots of community, and we have community co-chairs. We have four co-chairs, 2 are community members and 2 are district members. And so we're working together to identify those spaces and places where the district needs to work to strengthen the equity agenda and the students that right now are not being served very well. And so with regard to this committee, if you look to the right in the flower, I will call it today, we have roughly 6 committees. And again, this committee just began meeting last week. But the first subcommittee we have is around community building and education. And we feel it's important for this committee to build relationships and connections and not just make decisions and recommendations, and also to speak the same language so that we are all learning the same concepts and ideas, and it's the community and the district together. Another subcommittee is the Equity Assessment Committee, and the Equity Assessment Committee will help to identify those areas that we want to bring a vendor in to assess and see where is it, what are the root causes of some of the problems we have in the district with regard to equity. We have 4 subcommittees that are organized around the board's 4 priorities: student well-being and achievement, teacher and employee well-being, culture of respect and customer service, financial stewardship, and prioritization. And so each of these subcommittees will be meeting over the next few weeks to decide what the priorities are as we move forward. One of the things we're doing with this committee as well is making sure it's open to the public. Our next meeting is April 27th from 5:30 until 7:30, and the public is welcome. Everyone is welcome to attend those meetings, ask questions, and bring forth items and ideas for agenda as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dr. Hawley. So next, we're going to talk a little bit about our 2020 to 2025 strategic plan. The board had just adopted the strategic plan, the strategic framework rather, shortly before the change in leadership this past summer. And the next step in this process is to develop targeted strategies and an action plan. So first, I'm going to turn it over to Michelle Wallace to give us a little bit of background about the development of the strategic framework and where we're at in that process now.
Thank you so much, Michelle Wallace, Office of Innovation and Development. That's right. The Board of Trustees developed and approved the strategic framework last year. You can see it on this slide. For the most part, it includes our mission. We prepare every student with the knowledge and skills to thrive in college, career, and life. Our vision: we are Austin's home for inclusive learning, high expectations for children, high outcomes for every student. And the priority focus areas that you heard Dr. Hawley outline: student well-being and achievement, teacher and employee well-being, culture of respect, customer service, and fiscal stewardship and prioritization. And the board also approved a revised scorecard aligned with this framework. And that's really how we'll measure our progress against the priority focus areas as a district. The administration now is developing strategies and action steps, which is basically what we think we need to do as a district to achieve progress in the priority focus areas. That is work that's done by Dr. Elisalde and her leadership team. We also had a focus group last year for community members to give feedback on development of the strategies. And then we've also been really deliberate about working with Dr. Hawley's team in the equity office side by side as we're developing the strategic plan and incorporating the equity engagement that's happened in the equity office over the last year. They've done just an incredible amount of community engagement and really hearing from community members what they're interested in seeing the district make progress on. And that feedback has been embedded in the strategy development for the strategic plan. And that's a little bit about the background and where we are on the work.
Great, thank you so much, Ms. Wallace. Dr. Elisalde, is there anything you'd like to add about where we're at right now with the action plans?
Stephanie Elizalde. Yes, I would like to just be very intentional about the connection of these 3 documents. Because the documents represent processes and they represent the work. So working from the strategic framework and how that informs the creation of the scorecard, and then how the scorecard translates into the district improvement plan, knowing full well that all of the data that are on the scorecard are not all of the data that we must address. There are many other areas that are supports to ensuring that we meet those student outcomes and other outcomes that are listed in our scorecard. What I would like to take a moment to just highlight is that this district improvement plan is not something separate from, let's say, an equity plan, but rather it is in conjunction with the equity plan. This may not be the greatest of analogies, but I'm going to ask Stephanie Hawley to forgive me. I'm going to use an analogy that equity is not in and of itself an outcome. It has to become a way of doing things. So much like, for instance, we should all do our work in an ethical way. The ethics itself is not the work. It's the way in which we do the work. Honesty is a great process of how we operate, but honesty itself is not the work. But you can't get to quality work without equity. So if I could trouble someone to go back to the slide that has number 12 on it, I believe, which is what I call the flower petal blooming, Dr. Hawley. I think it's the flower petal blooming. What you see here is a complete it's an alignment. It's overlapping that you see student well-being and achievement, which is a priority focus area, teacher and employee well-being, which is a priority focus area, a culture of respect and customer service, again, a priority area, and of course, financial stewardship and prioritization connected with our equity assessment that will be conducted and ensuring that there is a continuation of community building and education. And all of that, our equity advisory committee are also working alongside. So we will interweave this work within what is going to be in our strategic or district improvement plan. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Elisalde. Next, I'm going to turn it over to a couple members of the team to talk about current priorities and strategies that we're focusing on right now and in the immediate future, starting with Ms. Elizabeth Casas to talk a little bit about dual language and special education.
And we'll be switching interpreters at this time.
Thank you for the opportunity. As we focus on outcomes for our students, two of the priorities are making sure that our programs that support emergent bilingual and special education services are conducive to producing those outcomes that we need and want for our children. And so one of those is staffing and making sure that campuses have the staff that they need and the resources and tools that they need to support our students. Here before you, you see a longitudinal research study on the different programs that serve emergent bilingual students. And in Austin ISD, we have a dual language model, which if you look at the top red lines, it's the one-way and the two-way, and that depends on the students that are being served with the program. But these are the kinds of outcomes that we want to have for our emergent bilingual students, not just at the elementary level, but long-term so that they can leave our district as strong, bilingual, bicultural, biliterate students and be able to do whatever they want in their life to be productive citizens. Second priority is services for special education students. And currently we are in the process of hiring a new executive director and new leadership. So I understand that there's, I just want to say thank you for your patience as we transition to new leadership and improve our services to make sure our students get what they need so that they can be high performing in all areas. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Casas. Next, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Jacob Reach to talk a little bit about enrollment.
Oh, thank you. So another priority that we've identified for the district is related to enrollment. As we know, through these past couple of years, we have seen a steady decline in enrollment. During the 1920 school year, we actually saw a slight increase, which we know we can contribute to the hard work of all of our campuses reaching out and connecting families. But for this current year, we saw a pretty significant decrease in enrollment due to COVID. So we want to prioritize efforts to reconnect with these families. One of the things that we're really proud of is all the work that our parent support specialist did over the summer, connecting with over 2,000 families whose students either we expected for them to be enrolled, but they were not, or they were here last year, but not this year. And so that really helped in encouraging remote learning for a lot of those families. So overall, we are launching our Operation Reconnect campaign. And on April 10th, we will actually have an opportunity where volunteers and staff will be going door to door to reconnect with families who we expected to be enrolled this year, but for one reason or another, were not. We're also forming an enrollment office that will be focused on improving families' experiences, both with registration, but also outreach with what is going on at our campuses and in our communities, and sharing the great things happening at all of our campuses every day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Reach. And briefly to Mr. Sean Brinkman to talk a little bit about our priorities around Wi-Fi and tech access, as well as other systems that we're putting in place.
Thank you. This is Sean Brinkman again, CTO. Yeah, so we want to continue to address the digital divide and make sure all of our students have access to high-speed broadband internet. We're going to be looking at moving our approach, shifting our approach from providing students that don't have access to that internet a hotspot to a more sustainable solution, with the goal really being extending our district network out into the community and ultimately into the students' home. Some other things that we'll be working on this year and prioritizing is really modernizing our business systems, and specifically our HR and finance systems. Once we've gone through the implementation of those systems, AISD should be in a good place to really realize some efficiencies to help us manage and prepare our budgets better, to help us hire more effectively, support teachers and staff throughout their career in the district. And then finally, we're going to be looking at our tools for teachers. There's several different tools that we introduced to teachers throughout this last year. One in particular is a tool around how they can look at the assessment data and student assessment data holistically, and really get a picture of how students are doing at any point in time in their instructional process. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, I'd like to highlight a handful of the accomplishments so far over the last several months and what we can expect next, starting again with Ms. Elizabeth Casas about accomplishments with early literacy and our curriculum.
I want to give a shout out to our health services as a first accomplishment, and the organization by our Ms. Copeland in organizing the distribution from the various sources on the vaccines for our teaching staff and all of the staff in Austin ISD. The next thing that we want to highlight is that Dr. Mays and I have been working really closely on making sure that our instructional framework is rigorous, coherent, and accessible to our teachers. We're looking at the curriculum that was built this year to really make it robust and make it rigorous for our students to be able to perform at a high level, with an emphasis on accelerating learning, knowing that this year has been a challenging year. So there'll be lots more information coming out on our literacy plan, the instructional framework, and lots of great things for Austin ISD.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to turn it over to Police Chief Gonzalez to highlight some of the Austin ISD police initiatives around mental health response and racial bias training. You are on mute.
My apologies. Thank you so much, Gabriela. So it has been a challenging year for everyone, and the police department is a small part of the district. We are committed to making sure our students and our staff are safe, and that when we connect or we serve them in the appropriate way. So we focused a lot on mental health training, de-escalation. We revamped all our policies to ensure that there's strict accountability. We are committed to transparency, and we have began to post some reports and policies online. Recently, as far as 2 months ago, we brought racial intelligence training and engagement training to the entire department, and that was attended by all the officers as well as the dispatchers. And that particular training focused on emotional intelligence, social intelligence, and implicit bias in the workplace, as well as with the community. And it really focused on serving our students and our community with respect, with dignity. We realized that oftentimes Officers are the first ones to arrive at the scene where there might be a situation, and officers recognize that the student might be in crisis. Then they have the ability to de-escalate the situation before turning it over to counselors or administration.
Great, thank you so much. Next, I will move on to Mr. Matias Segura to give us a little bit more information about facility improvements, COVID readiness, and storm response.
Thank you very much. Certainly very proud of all the work that's been accomplished by our organization in collaboration with our community. COVID readiness, certainly an area to highlight. The PPE distribution, health and safety protocols, really working closely with our campuses to ensure that we create as safe a space as possible. Certainly the storm response effort that occurred several weeks ago, certainly a highlight for the organization. Our ability to move quickly and create shelters, warming centers, food and water distribution sites, as well as work collaboratively with Travis County and City of Austin, all of our partners, to just do whatever we could to support our community. I'm very proud of that work, and certainly many lessons learned as we think about how we work moving forward. As far as the work, it has to continue, and our commitment to deliver the 2017 bond program did not go away. And certainly all the work associated with delivering new modernized facilities has been ongoing. We've been able to meet all of our budgets and schedules, and all of the prioritization around HVAC systems, security and safety that impacts all of our campuses, certainly work that's been done on time and on budget. As we move forward, certainly I'm going to be excited about delivering 9 additional modernized facilities in August of 2021. Long-term planning is always very, very important as we think about how we can best support our community and our students and staff. Ultimately, our goal as an organization within operations is to wholly support students and staff, align with academics, align with school leadership, and do whatever we can to support this organization and education. So excited about the opportunity and look forward to what's next. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Segura. So next, we're going to talk about everybody's favorite topic, the budget. So we all know that we're going to be facing some budgetary challenges next year, especially considering expenses related to COVID and to the storms and to the other litany of unpredictable events we've had over the last year. I'm going to first pose a question to Ms. Leslie Stevens to talk a little bit about how the potential challenges to our budget may or may not affect staffing.
Thank you. And it is Leslie Stevens in Human Capital. And right now on our campuses, we're staffed and with the anticipation of 80,000 students. At the start of the school year, we had 75,000 students who are currently enrolled in our schools. So that is a difference of 5,000 students. Now, next year, we are projecting that we'll have around 77,000 students, a little over that, in our schools. So that did pose some staffing differences for the following school year. If we would have, so within the district, we use staffing formulas. If we would have left our staffing formulas the exact same that we used at the beginning of this year to next year, we would have had a loss of a little over 600 campus positions. So in looking at our staffing formulas, we thought it was an opportune time to look at them through a different lens and to start applying some of the equity pieces that we knew existed within the district. And so we looked at, number of students on a campus that receive special education services, to weight for that factor. We also looked at the number of students on a campus that were economically disadvantaged. So what we were trying to do for this coming up school years is to hit a reset button by looking at our staffing as one of our greatest resources we have and provide the resources, which are our teachers, where they are most needed. And so We revise staffing formulas. We are trying to make sure that we equitably distribute our resources across our campuses. And so in doing that, we're going to have a reduction in the district of approximately 200 to 250 campus positions. None of those employees who are not going to be at that particular campus next year will lose their job. All of the current employees will be picked up in positions as they become vacant or as we have needs. So every year about this time, you know, we have teachers who decide to retire, or families, you know, teachers who move out of the Austin area. And so we know for a fact that we can fill all of our positions with our current staff that are needed. We generally hire between 600 and 700 teachers a year. And so we do know that we will not be having any teachers that we let go due to a staffing formula change.
Thank you so much. And now real quick, I'll turn it over to Dr. Anthony Mays to talk a little bit about how instruction informs our budget.
Yeah, I can pick up on where Ms. Stevens just stopped. I mean, our teachers and our staff, our faculty and staff is our biggest resource. And so we yield that resource based on the data that principals gather as they have conversations within their communities, or they look at, you know, assessment data that they may have on the campus. And so it really is about having those conversations, whether it's with, you know, our PTA, community chats, or campus advisory committees, to try to determine what are the needs of the campus. We also review, again, the assessment data, or, you know, again, our most marginalized groups when we look at special education, or, you know, again, our 504 students. What are the needs of the campus? Is really about trying to build around what the data is telling us is the need of the campus. And we go about that process to try to make sure that our resources in terms of finances and manpower are allocated or aligned with those needs that we've assessed as we've had those conversations or reviewed that data. And that process is ongoing. Our principals have lots of support in the form of our executive directors who also serve to try to support this process. And we pretty much go in and out of that process to make sure that all of the campus needs are met at that level.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mays. And for the last question for our panel portion, we're going to talk a little bit about future planning. You know, we're starting to maybe just a little bit see the light at the end of the tunnel in terms of the pandemic, and starting to plan and look forward to next year and to the end of this year. So turning it right back to you, Dr. Mays, to talk a little bit about some good news, hopefully, about graduation and end of the school year.
It is. I like to believe it's good news, and hopefully everyone is excited because we are hosting our graduations face-to-face. Again, those students will be able to attend graduation. We're using our stadiums to be able to pack in as many people as we can, but each student is limited to 4 guests, and so those will be taking place between May 28th and June 3rd. And so we will be, you know, recognizing all of the safety measures and precautions that are there, taking temperatures, social distancing, doing whatever it is that we need to do to make sure that we conduct graduation in a safe way. And so it may not look exactly like we've seen it look in the past in terms of, you know, bands and, you know, a lot of the pomp and circumstance, but we will be piping in music. We will be doing whatever we can to get it as close to the experience that you would have had in a normal year without COVID. And so in addition to that, I know prom has been coming up. We will also be hosting prom, and I can also elaborate on that a little later.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Mays. That is excellent news. And I will have Dr. Elisalde close us off by talking a little bit about what next year might look like.
I'll work to be brief because I know we want to make sure we're able to take questions. So we are planning for a more standard face-to-face instructional delivery model this next school year for the 21-22 school year. The question I've been asked lots of questions, but what in particular, will we be requiring masks for the 21-22 school year? We will, as long as the CDC says that that's what's necessary for safety. And so unless something drastically were to change, we should anticipate, it is my expectation that at least for the first half of the school year, until the vaccine is available for students for children under the age of 16, and that we have enough time for individuals 16 to 18 to get the vaccine. We should not think that face-to-face would not have masks, at least not initially. But we also know that we are much safer than we were a year ago. We know more about the vaccine, and we know more about how to keep our facilities and what measures to take to ensure that we are keeping everyone safe. In addition to that, we are exploring, and we will have some form of a virtual instructional model, but I want everybody to make sure, and I know if you're a staff or a community member, you care very much about the next statement I'm going to make. We will not have teachers required or expected to do concurrent or simultaneous, fancy word for saying you're teaching both students in class and you're teaching students in Zoom. We will not be doing that. That was really like an impossible situation, and I'm so thankful to our teachers who just kept working it and trying how to make that work, and how they partnered and dedicated themselves to making sure that they kept students in the center of their decision making. We are so fortunate to have educators who dedicate themselves to ensuring that they meet their students where they are. So there'll be additional changes that'll be coming. I know people want specifics about the virtual options that might be available. That is really something that requires all of our team members to be a part of making that happen. So we want to make sure we're getting internal and external stakeholder information. So we won't be able to tell folks right away what it will look like. However, we also know that if we're going to, not if, when we make this work, we will need to make sure that we ask our families to please make a decision for one semester. Otherwise, that is how we end up with teachers being in a very difficult situation of trying to do both or another. And so this way we will continue to dedicate ourselves to doing just one mode of instruction for teachers. And the last thing I want to say is we could not do this work without you, whether you're a community member and or a staff member. You all inspire us to continue to work on improving our systems, our communications with you. And when I think about community involvement in our schools, it reminds me of an Aristotle quote that educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. And so we need all of you so that we can continue to ensure that we educate the mind and our hearts and our students' hearts. Thank you for giving so much of your heart to all of us.
Thank you so much, Dr. Elisalde, and to all of our panelists. We will now be moving into the question and answer portion.
And we'll be switching interpreters at this time.
Thank you. So I want to make sure to answer some of the questions that came up in the registration form that y'all filled out. I saw several questions about summer programming. What summer programming will be offered? What is it going to look like? So I would love if some of our panelists could answer what summer programming is going to look like for this coming summer.
Let me get started just a little bit and then I'll turn it over. One is that it's a balance in summer programming. We know that certainly if for me, this COVID has seemed, I've been here more than 7 months, less than 8. And it definitely seems like I could combine those two numbers and it could be 78 years. So this has been like the longest year of my entire career. And so if it's true for me, I'm sure that it's true for everyone else. So part of this is about us understanding that sometimes we have to take time to reset, to allow folks to reset, to allow for reflection and prioritizing our students' needs at the same time. So there's been a lot of conversation in a lot of surrounding districts doing, oh, we're doing summer programming, everybody's coming, we've got to get everybody caught up. The truth is, if we are not able to provide the best of our staff to our students, I'm not sure just how much student outcomes we're going to get. That being said, we also know we have some students that we must do something during the summer to make sure that we are prepared for the school year. So high school students in particular, when you're on a credit by credit or Carnegie unit analysis of how you move from one grade to the next and whether you reach graduation requirements, that might be an area that Dr. Mays and his team are working on focusing. I think there's also been a discussion about individual students who are moving from one, what I call handoffs. We hand off from elementary to middle school. So that 5th to 6th grade transition, what can we do in the summer to make sure that that transition is smooth? And then again, from 8th to 9th grade, the handoff between middle schools and high schools. And so I think there are a variety of areas that the school leadership office, working in conjunction with the other offices, are working to identify so that we can provide some quality summer programming, but not at the expense of not giving all of our team members an opportunity to self-care, because we know we do have to provide those opportunities so that we can then meet the needs of our students in a quality way.
Thank you so much, Dr. Elisalde. And then I saw a question in the chat from Molly Barker, and I'd love if you could offer a little bit of clarification about this. There was a question asked about the timeline around school closures, and I'd love to be able to answer that.
So as long as I'm here right now, I have taken school closures out of the conversation. We need to work on the conditions of our schools, and I'm not talking just about the physical condition. I'm talking about what are the conditions that led to schools having a reduction in enrollment. So our focus needs to be on the conditions and improving those conditions. One of the responses to that is why we've created an enrollment office. So you may remember that previous leadership had a very important position called the special assistant. So I have eliminated that position because it was vacant. And so through that vacancy, because I also don't want to speak out of both sides of our mouths. We know that we have to make some cuts at the campuses. Well, that means we have to make cuts at central office too. And so that reflected in that position was repurposed so that it could become essentially the anchor to an enrollment office, because we have to think differently about going and reconnecting with our students. We know there are 16,000 students sitting in charter schools that live in Austin ISD. If we go and convince and reconnect just 10% in year 1 and another 20% in year 2, we know that we can regain that market share. We won't have to have any conversations about school closures. So rather than looking at this from a deficit mentality, we need to look at this from a, what do we do to change the conditions of the school? Staffing is in fact part of that process. That is in fact part of where sometimes we may need to reallocate and provide additional support to campuses that need that support so that we can offer the type of quality education that we know every student deserves and that we know our staff want to provide. But we need to make sure we provide all of the resources to make that possible.
Thank you so much, Dr. Elisalde. And now I'd like to open up the floor, since we're all done with the questions in the chat, to anybody who has questions. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask away. Not everybody at once. Great. Well, I think some of our participants might like to know what might be some of the next steps from this series of meetings. So we do a series of meetings, we share some information, we hear some questions, comments, concerns. How is this going to be integrated into our work going forward? And how is this going to inform our work going forward?
You want me to jump in on that, Gabriela?
Sure.
Okay, so I really think that this is about us first working to understand how we can meet your needs of communication. So we're working on a variety, and Gabriela and her team, the community engagement team, along with the communications team, which I would like to publicly again thank all of them for organizing this. And I want to thank our interpreters I try to remind myself to speak slowly, and then I see our interpreters and I'm like, I'm talking way too fast so that they can have time. So I really want to thank them for everything they've done to make this possible and accessible. But part of this is getting feedback from you. While we don't want this to be one-sided, we also know we have to have some opportunities where we can at least communicate what we're thinking, what we're doing, and how we're processing it, even if it's not complete. One of the common themes I heard over and over again is, even if you don't have the answer, can you tell us what you're doing? And so I think this is one of those steps in which where we can tell you, we don't have all the answers, but here's where we are and here's how we're working together. I've heard a lot of questions around, well, how is the Office of X working with the Office of Y? So how are we working with the Technology Office? How are we working with the Equity Office? And so I think first and foremost, we want to get your feedback about whether this meets any needs. And then if it does, but it leaves much to be desired, we want to take that feedback and improve on these processes. While we hopefully will get to a point where we can have some in-person things, until that time, we also know that this makes it accessible for people who may have difficulty getting to a location. So some of this informs us of how to utilize technology wherever possible. So we want to use this to also listen and hear your questions, because trust me, when we get your questions, we're like, if one person's asking this, then that's something that probably several people are asking. And then we will get together and we will talk about how can we better communicate, or how can we work this in a different way? So this was our first one. And so again, I'm sure we made lots of errors and things that you all are going, if you had done this, if you had done this, please give us that feedback so that we can improve on this process.
Great, thank you so much, Dr. Elizalde. I believe Catherine has a question.
Thank you so much. I was still trying to type to your direct message, so I apologize for not getting back so quickly. I'm so sorry. I don't remember your name, and I know that you're the host.
Gabriella. Hi, I'm Gabriella.
Gabriella, I apologize. Hi, my name is Miss Catherine Lujan Rickert. I'm the Avid 3 and 4 teacher at Travis Early College High School. I want to be mindful of everyone's time right now. My question, and Miss Gabriella, please let me know if this is not the right place or time. I want to know, parents, grown-ups, community, how do you envision us celebrating our seniors in a way that fosters community, gathering, but also ensures the safety of everyone? So I understand if I'm out of place for asking this question, and I just wanted to ask it.
I certainly don't think you're out of place. I think in the chat, we could probably get some folks that would probably give you some feedback that would we'd be interested in knowing too, Ms. Lujan, so that we would be able to know whether we're headed in the right direction. We want to balance out the ability to have some sort of an activity. One of the things I heard our principals ask me right after I got here, they said, we'll do whatever we think is best for kids, but please don't make us have 3 graduation approaches. And so I didn't really know what they were talking about. And then as I looked around, it was like, well, first you're going to come to the school, we're going to pretend you graduate, but nobody's going to be there. We're going to take a picture, then we're going to take another picture, then we're going to have people drive by. And so then I understood what they were talking about. And so what we heard overwhelmingly, and I feel very comfortable with safety protocols, particularly outside, having 4 tickets per student, being in our stadium. So as a beginning point, I know that that's something we can work on. I know we're doing proms, but I think it's a great question that we can even, it doesn't have to be a one time, like we can think about how we can gather information. And of course, I will encourage you to do that at your campus level as well. And of course, you're right next to the Starbucks I get to go to in the mornings before I come to work, right? That's where Travis Early College High School is, right there. So thank you for everything you do.
Yes, ma'am. Likewise to everyone else that is here, 6:23 on a Tuesday. Or
yeah, thank you.
It's Tuesday. Okay, sorry.
It is. Thank you so much. Steve Wilson.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm just a parent of a 6th grader at Paredes Middle School. Not speaking for anybody else. I think y'all did a fine job putting this together. and I appreciate the time everybody's put into it. Superintendent Elizalde, it sort of at the top of the call, mentioned all the input she'd collected from folks, and I'm just curious, in the middle of all this mess that we've been going through lately, where did you get to talk to people? Because I've only been on my kid's campus one time this year, and that's only because I got dragooned into the PTA. So, I mean, how did you get your input, ma'am?
So first, let me reiterate, thank you for being a parent and thank you for choosing Austin ISD. And there's no such thing, Mr. Wilson, as just a parent. The parent is super awesome. So, and with that, so what I did is first I had a list of internal leaders in our district. So executive directors, several principals, teachers of the year, counselors, and I would set up Zoom visits, of course, every board member. And I asked all of the same 10 questions. Then I had some community input from a variety of organizations, some of which they invited me. So I would get to listen to that group, whether it was Educators in Solidarity, whether it was and I'm going to get it wrong, I see Deb Trejo on here, but there are two equity committee groups. One focused on special education, some parents and staff that sit on that committee. There's also a bilingual education equity committee, and I got to visit with them. There were some business members, either through the chamber. There was a Lions Club group that I got connected with. So it was a variety of different kind of organizations. And then I include both city, county officials. So a session with the mayor, a session with the county judge, just trying to gather a variety of backgrounds. The group that I definitely have not hit would be, which I would like to create as we move into this next school year, is actually a parent advisory committee. And I think that would be actually something that would be very helpful.
Yes, ma'am, I'd agree with that. You know, it's no approbation on anybody. This has been rough for everybody to get through, but I think if I had an ask, you know, I've sort of been at every meeting I could be at. They're all virtual. Asked folks, how can I help? This is my 8th kid in school. I've never felt so useless, right? Never felt like, you know, don't always have a whole lot of time to help out with my kid. But this is the worst one. And you know, it's not just me. A lot of folks probably feel that way. And there's probably not a whole lot y'all can do about it. But I guess if there's a point to this is what do you think is the way forward, man?
Well, I definitely think that I had a steep learning curve, and I think you're doing an amazing job, Mr. Wilson. And I agree that, you know, I think I did hold, I think there were at least 2 town hall meetings, but they were in August. School hadn't quite started. I mean, there were just so many different obstacles. But we should never be, our team will never be in a situation of, well, we couldn't do anything about it. That's the point of our conversation right now. And first of all, I really want to appreciate the fact that you're asking us these things because we want to improve. And the only way we improve is if we know exactly what's in your all's hearts and minds. And so what I'm hearing is we need to continue to do more outreach and more involvement. And there's always a way. And I know our team is super creative. And so we definitely will be working towards creating a parent advisory committee. I'm also wanting to create what I'll call like a student teen board. I haven't been able to interact with students in the same way in which I imagined that I would normally do. So we'll continue to challenge ourselves. Thank you for raising that. And we'll continue to move forward by finding ways to more actively engaging our parents.
Yes, ma'am. And don't take that as criticism. I think y'all are doing a fine job.
Great. Well, thank you so much to everybody for joining us on this Tuesday evening. We're so grateful for all of you participating in this and to our panelists. for all the helpful information they've shared. Hopefully we were able to answer all of your questions. If we were not, please feel free to email me. I just shared my information in the chat. I'm Gabriella Becker. I'm a community engagement coordinator. If I can't answer your question myself, I will direct it to somebody else. You can also ask questions in our Let's Talk system as well. As a reminder, this session has been recorded, and these recordings can be shared at a later date if there's something you'd like to revisit, or somebody you know missed the event and would like to see it later. So thank you so much to everybody for joining us this evening, and I'm looking forward to being able to engage with all of our families more soon, and hopefully over the next several months, maybe seeing some of y'all in person. Thank you, everybody.